Up next on the podcast, two of my friends in Nashville, Kris Esqueda and Ryan Costanza, both industry veterans. Ryan has Present Tense that's going to open soon in Nashville, and Kris is an industry veteran dating back to San Francisco days working at Saison, legendary restaurant. This podcast is more about travel, where to eat, what's going on. These guys travel a lot, and we're going to download a lot of information. Kris just got back from Japan, so he has a lot of interesting things to say. Ryan, Kris, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Basically, what I want to talk to you guys about is like we all kind of travel a lot, and we all have some history of traveling, and we eat everywhere. And the three of us are always kind of texting each other like, "Hey, I'm heading to LA. Where do I go? Hey, Kris just went to Japan." So why don't we just start with like who you guys are, what you're doing, and then let's get into where you guys are eating, where you've been traveling to, and talk about what you're going to do next. And so, Kris, let's start with you because your background is pretty amazing. You used to be in the restaurant industry, used to work for one of the best restaurants in the country, if not arguably one of the best restaurants in the world. And now you moved to Nashville, scrapped it all, was smart, and now you're in the real estate game. So
yeah, recovering restaurateur.
Yeah, recovering. Yeah,
I'm in recovery.
How many days sober?
God, it's been almost 6 years, 5 years.
Good for you.
5 years. Yeah, it's pretty
Give
wild.
us all hope.
One day, man. One day.
Yeah. So my background. Yeah. I've been in Nashville for, I'm in my 6th year, and before that, I was in San Francisco. I was in San Francisco for about 11 years. I think I moved there in 2005, 2006. Originally I was dating a girl, ended up in San Francisco, went there for school, worked in restaurants while I was in school. First experience with I'm from Santa Barbara, California originally, and my uncle owned some restaurants there, like Greasy Spoon Diner. And so that was sort of my start with restaurants. I worked at In-N-Out Burger in high school.
Bro, how was that, man?
Epic. I mean,
yeah, it seems like a fun place to work, man.
I mean, made great money too. It was
$15,
$16 an hour.
Damn.
In high school back then was great. And so ended up in San Francisco, got a job at the Olive Garden.
When you hear your family.
Yeah, totally. Right near San Francisco State, got a job at Olive Garden serving. And I got the job at Olive Garden serving because I tried to get a job downtown San Francisco, and I had no experience. I had In-N-Out Burger experience, and I was trying to get a job at this French restaurant that my buddy worked at.
Which one?
It's called Café de la Presse.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still there. I think corner of Bush and Grant, right across from the gates of Chinatown. And I tried to get a job, and they were like, "We're sorry, you just don't have the kind of experience that we're looking for. Like, go get a restaurant job." So I applied at places and the only job I was able to get was at the Olive Garden right by San Francisco State University that I was attending.
And then 2 months later, you went back to the French place. I got all this experience, man. I'm ready.
It's exactly what I did. It was about 4 months. 4 months later, 5 months later, I went back and was like, because my buddy worked there, and I was like, I wanted to work with my buddy. And it was the holidays, and everyone knows the holidays are a total shit show in the restaurant industry. So they were like, "All right, cool. You got the job." I wore a suit and got the job at this French restaurant, and that was my first sort of experience in a slightly higher end. Like they had a wine list, and they actually made cocktails other than the frozen limoncello lemonade.
And at this point, was dining, that kind of fine dining, was so foreign to you?
I mean, it was growing up in Santa Barbara. There was it's a relatively nice place to live. My dad's an auto mechanic, so we didn't grow up eating fine dining food.
Right,
we grew up
same.
at Outback Steakhouse, and Olive Garden was a fancy meal out for us.
Right. For my birthday, we'd go to Red Lobster was okay, this year we're taking you to Red Lobster, and after that it was Outback or it was Olive Garden. You see, same kind of
delicious. Yeah.
I mean,
Bloomin' Onion. Get out of
Red
here.
Lobster. That's
it's
fine dining.
Just the marketing alone of Red Lobster when you're a kid, and it's you see that shrimp scampi just kind of slide across the screen. You're like, I want that.
Absolutely.
For my birthday.
The tour of Italy at Olive Garden was,
Mamma Mia.
That was really going for it. And
that's the inspiration behind Iggy's, actually. Yeah. That's where it all came from.
I was wondering.
My 12th birthday, I went to Olive Garden. I was like, this is what I want to do.
All you can eat soup, salad, and breadsticks. I cannot wait. but yeah, so that was like the first restaurant where it was like white tablecloths. Like I had to learn about cocktails, right? Like what, other than that, I was
Proper steps of service.
Yeah, well, and I was, I was 21. So up to that point, it was like I was crushing Coors Light and Jim Beam flask and drinking Sparks, and like and getting shitty drunk on shitty booze. And this was the first time I was like having to learn about French wine and having to learn about proper classic cocktails and steps of service, and was wearing like the full vest. Long, French apron and the tie, and so.
Were you completely overwhelmed? Were you like, holy shit?
Well, I was overwhelmed because that restaurant was a fucking shit show.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, we did, like personal sales. I worked, obviously when you start in a restaurant, everyone always knows you always get the shitty shifts. So I had to work brunch, Saturday and Sunday brunch. I had to get there at like 6:45. And when you're 20 years old, living in San Francisco, there were many times where I would get home from the bars at 3 a.m, take a 2-hour nap, hopefully not sleep through my alarm, make it to work, be the first person in, go straight in behind the bar, open a bottle of champagne, pour it into a tall coffee cup, little splash of orange juice, put it in the back of the fridge, pour another one, and then, be like sipping a mimosa, getting ready. I was the first person there.
Try doing that now. I would spontaneous combust in like 45 minutes into the shift.
I would die. I can't even drink 6 beers anymore. I would die. So, starting at brunch, and it was like, man, I don't even know how many covers we did, but I would do personal sales on brunch. There'd be like 13, 14 table sections. I'd do $3,500, $4,000 in sales.
Jeez, how big was the restaurant?
The restaurant probably sat in the dining room sat probably about 80, 85 people. There was a patio that sat probably another 40. There was like an upstairs cafe, like the bar area sat like maybe 25. There was another 25 in this like lower seated, 40 outside, 85 downstairs. And downstairs, they would just run 2 servers. So you get, it was 12 tables each.
God, man.
And you made your own fucking coffee. You had to pour your own orange juice. And they did this is so funny. I've been out of the restaurant here for so long. The floating creme anglaise, the
floating islands.
Clafoutis, whatever it is, that French dessert.
Yeah.
Can make you have to plate your own ones of those. It was ridiculous.
Oh my God.
So at the end of it, you were sweating through your vest. And yeah, it was.
Were you giving like complete shit service? Or
I mean, absolutely. But but that was like my first real restaurant job. And then I graduated like to dinners, and it was a totally different vibe. Like sales were still great, but I was like, holy shit, great! I only have I've got like 5 tables, and like I can actually talk to guests. Yeah. And so that was like the first real restaurant job I had, and I totally fell in love. Mm-hmm. I was like instantly, I'm hooked. Like French wine and cocktails and fine dining, and so from there ended up getting another restaurant job that was an American restaurant, American chef. This young sommelier was a general manager, and it was sort of a wine focused restaurant, and I really sort of took a liking to wine and started studying more with wine and really kind of falling in love with wine specifically. And this guy was, at the time I was probably 22. He was maybe 25, 26. And, he drove a BMW, he had a Rolex watch, he knew a ton about wine. And I was like, this is like, I want to be like this guy. Like he's got it figured out. Like he probably gets tons of.
I want to make bank. I want to drive a Range Rover.
Yeah, like he gets tons of girls. He's driving a BMW. Like I'm doing something wrong with my life. Like I need to, And so we started hanging out, and I started asking him to teach me about wine. And so that's when I really sort of took a more serious dive into F&B, like beyond just doing it to make money for drinks after work and school. So that relationship with that person, his name was Mark. He was, at the time he was like one of the youngest sommeliers in the country. He worked for the Michael Mina Group. He started in Vegas and worked at Aqua with Michael Mina there. And then when Michael Mina sort of came back to San Francisco to begin his empire, They moved him back to be the som on the floor at Michael Mina's flagship in Union Square there. And so this was his first project outside of the Mina group on his own. We hit it off, became really great friends. And he came from like a whole nother echelon of restaurants. Like, we're never talking, Michelin stars and it was really fascinating to me. And it was mostly the wine that I really enjoyed about it. And then I started to learn more and got to meet other people, a lot of other people that were in the Michael Mina organization. And then we partied a lot. We partied a lot. And so we would always, it'd be super early in the morning and we'd be talking about like, he was a young guy, I was a young guy. And, we want to do all this stuff, talking about all these things that we were going to do. Oh, we're going to do wine tours. Oh, we're going to do tastings. Oh, we're going to make wine. And we did a few things. They were all marginally successful. And then we had the opportunity to do this pop-up restaurant with an old chef buddy of his that worked for him in the Mina group. We did a 6-course tasting menu with wine pairing, fine dining. And this was my first experience at a multi-course tasting menu in sort of a service role, in sort of a service aspect of it. So I went to, there's an Italian restaurant in San Francisco called Acquarello. And I went over there and staged for like 2 weeks. See what they do, see how they operate service. They've been open for, I don't know, I think at that time they'd been open for like 12 years. They've probably been open for 25 years now. And sort of, I think right at that time also that movie, and this would be a good segue about Japan, but the Jiro Dreams of Sushi documentary came out. And I sort of like had this mindset shift where I was like, oh, I think this is what I really want to do. Like there's this whole dedication to, doing something the absolute best you can.
Being a fanatic about it.
Yeah, I mean, fanatical. And so we did this pop-up and Michael Bauer, the restaurant food critic at the time, didn't go to the dinner, but picked up the story about it and wrote a little blurb in the San Francisco Chronicle and was like, hey, this, Saison, this pop-up restaurant by industry veterans, it's funny, industry veterans, Mark Bright, which he was like 26 at the time, and Joshua Skeens, who was maybe 28 or 9.
What year was this?
This was 2000, probably 9, 10. Yeah, okay. 2009, 10. And he wrote a little blurb about it, and we set up we just had like an email and a website, and so it was like a landing page that had email on it, and we were anticipating, we're like, yeah, we'll do this. Josh at the time was working for Michael Mina doing this like food cart, like sandwich and soup cart thing.
That seems to fit his style.
Totally. It was, now that I think about it, I'm like, God, it's so funny when I go in there and see him making sandwiches and fucking soup and we have meetings. And Mark was, I think at the time, Mark was unemployed. He had left that restaurant partnership. And I was still working for his old restaurant at the time, and I was going to San Francisco State in my like second to last year of university, and he wrote a little blurb about it, and we got like, I don't know, 200 reservation requests, and so we were like, all right, well, I guess maybe we need to do this thing more than just one Sunday a month because all of our Sundays are booked for the year, and so that was kind of the start of Saison. We went from like a pop-up to more of like a consistent pop-up where we're like one Sunday a month to every Sunday to Saturday, Sunday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday to get investors and turn it into like take over the whole space. We were popping up behind Stable Cafe in San Francisco. Right. They had like a gallery event space off the back of this commercial kitchen that they would rent out to people. And we would build the restaurant every day for service. We would put the chairs, tables. We had a storage space a block away. We'd spend 4 hours carting everything over. We'd build the entire restaurant, polish all the glassware, polish all the silverware, put the plates out, put our plates, get everything set up. We'd do service. At the end of service, we'd break everything down. Oh, my God. Clean all the plates, wrap every plate, wrap every glass, put everything in boxes, put all the wine glasses back, put everything on carts, shuttle everything over back to the storage place.
How many seats did you guys have?
We probably had in the 20s, okay. Like 25 seats. So it wasn't a ton of shit, but it was
Just the three of you?
It was, well, we did have some staff, but still it was, I mean, it like, you know, I mean, I would get there at, let's see, it was on Sunday. So we try and do what we could on Saturday, but they were really strict with us. Like, you guys can't fucking get in here. Like, Sunday is your day. Like, there's people in here otherwise than that. So I'd get there at like 9 or 10 in the morning on Sunday, start carting everything over, go run to the ferry building, pick up bread, go to, you know, Cowgirl Creamery cheese and pick up cheese that we need, anything else. And then come back, finish setting up the dining room. We'd get ready for everything. We'd run through service, and then service would end, and then it'd be the same thing. It'd be like, clean everything up, break everything down. It'd probably like 9 a.m., 10 a.m.
Dude, the stories give me anxiety, man.
It gives me anxiety just talking about it. I'm getting an elevated heart rate. And yeah, so we'd get out of there at like 1, 2, 3 in the morning, right? And then go out and party.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Yeah, of course. And so, you know, once we got Saturday and Sunday, it was like, oh my God, I can set up on Saturday. I can leave all this shit out overnight. Yeah. It was like a dream come true, right? And then once we got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it was the same thing. But that whole first, honestly, it was probably a year and a half where every single weekend we would build the restaurant, and every single weekend we would break the restaurant down and make it disappear.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was a total nightmare. But then, yeah, it kind of turned into a regular restaurant, and you know, and now obviously it's still open. It's probably been, I don't even know now.
Yeah, they seem to be doing okay.
2011, I think 2011 is kind of, I guess when you say it's the official like year that we opened, and yeah, it went on, you know, multiple Michelin stars, world's 50 best, that whole thing. I left in I think it was like 2014. Left the restaurant. The chef and I, we never saw eye to eye on anything. You know, you chef types are crazy, fucking egomaniacal.
It's unfortunate.
Maniacs.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
And so
we have a vision of the way we want to do things, and you have to conform or get out of here, you know?
Absolutely.
But,
and we were all
don't leave.
Exactly.
Well, we need you.
But I need you. But fuck you.
Well, totally. You know, and I'm a front of the house asshole, right? So
yeah,
know,
right.
I mean,
yeah.
I can't tell you how many times we get in yelling matches, and he'd be screaming at me like, you know, fuck you, spoon fed. You were spoon fed. You know, I don't want to get. I'm gonna write a great book behind the scenes book one day. Because I never had to sign any NDAs. But yeah, it was, you know, I was 23 when we opened the restaurant. I barely knew my elbow from my asshole. You know, I'd worked in restaurants, had experience in restaurants, but you know, we're talking about the ultimate sacrifice. I barely graduated college, but did. I took the first sort of time off I had taken from the restaurant was for my graduation. I took graduation day off. But other than that, every single time we were open, you know, I was there. And then I took that day off for my graduation, and then was back the next day. And yeah, we didn't get along, and I think I left. I was 26 when I left, 27, and I just kind of was like, man, this can't be my life. Mm-hmm. And so went on and ended up doing more hospitality projects. You know, at that point, that was the only thing I kind of knew, and I still was in love with it. I just was not in love with that partnership. And so
they could really beat it out of you. You know, like a bad experience in a restaurant. Ryan, you know too. It's like you have a bad experience for a couple of years, and you come out of it and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, it's defeating.
Yeah. It's very defeating. It fucks with your brain. You go to the next place and you have like this PTSD. Yeah. And you're never really kind of get your mojo back. Like
I still have PTSD. Partnerships I have a huge PTSD from. I mean at the time, I was a fucking kid, and I sacrificed everything. I used to play guitar. I sold like a Marshall half stack and Gibson SG and a Les Paul, and you know, at the time we're trying to get the restaurant going, and so I ended up selling like pretty much everything I owned.
To pay rent.
Just to pay rent. Jesus. I borrowed some money from my parents. You know, I think at the time I was paying myself like $450 a week. I made, you know, at the French restaurant when I first got that job, I was making $450 in cash tips on a brunch shift. Right. You know, and now, you know, and so I did that. I did it for as long as I thought that I could, to where I was like, man, I just don't know. Like, I really never cared about awards and accolades. I never cared about notoriety. I didn't care about Michelin stars. I didn't care about Grand Spectator awards. I didn't care about, really any of that. And I was with two people that was a huge passion and drive for them. And I felt like everything I was doing was to sort of help them accomplish this goal. And I just felt like I wasn't very well taken care of.
You weren't accomplishing anything yourself, though.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And, for me, it was like my ultimate goal. Like, I went to school for business. And so for me, I was like, I want to run a profitable business. This is not a profitable business.
Right.
It's not even close to being a profitable business. And it's not run like a business. Like, this is, it's a
playground.
It's a playground for a couple people to do some things, and also I didn't have a voice because I was the youngest one. Even though I was sort of in charge with a lot of the money and the behind the scenes stuff, and created a lot of service structure and all these things, it was like I just didn't feel like I had a voice. And after a couple years, I was like, man, it's not worth it for me. So left, and then went on to do a bunch of other projects. Opened a coffee shop wine bar there in San Francisco. Did a neighborhood bistro called Huxley. Opened a taco and tequila joint called Matador. And right after Saison, I went and helped open Sons and Daughters. Mm-hmm. I was like, I need a break from being a manager and being an owner. So I just kind of want to get a job. And I got this position as sort of started out just as a captain there. They just opened. They didn't have any restaurant ownership experience either. And then kind of fell into a captain / consultant. I ended up putting in really long hours there and would stay really late and would talk to the guys. I really liked two chefs, Matt and Teague, that owned the place. And
it's a great restaurant.
Yeah, and they were really cool. And I saw, when we first started Saison, I was like, man, these guys are actually cool, and they get it, the vibe that what I thought was going to be Saison. These guys get it, and it'll be cool. And then, that was the case. And then we got one Michelin star, and stuff changes. You start getting stars and things happen. And so I did that. I was with them for about a year. And then kind of after that, I was like, okay, I think I'm good on the Michelin star game. And then that's when I went and I opened a coffee shop wine bar. I was like, my ultimate goal is I want to open a chain of Chipotles or Taco Bells. And then, did that. And ultimately, got really, really burnt out on San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Got burnt out on restaurants even. I mean, before I left, I opened a second restaurant. I had one restaurant, Huxley, opened the second one, Matador, the taco and tequila spot, and worked, I kept track because I was like, this is insane. It was 5.5 months. I worked every single day, 5.5 months straight. The shortest day was 9 hours, but on average it was.
I hate that a half day for us is 8 hours.
Is 8 hours.
I'm just gonna work a half day today. You go to do paperwork and make the schedule. 8 hours later.
8 hours later.
Fuck, man.
And I was
4 or 5 hours is just stopping by.
It's just you're just stopping in, man.
8 hours. I was so happy if it was only an 8-hour shift. On average, it was 12,
you almost don't know what to do with
15.
yourself,
No, you don't. And you just get in the groove and honestly, I mean, what's going on. You understand it. You feel it. My body felt like shit. I've got it limping. It's you.
Thanks. Yeah.
And you feel it, but man, you're you're in it, and you got to get it done, and you got to make things happen. And you got to take care of business. And
so how'd you get to Nashville then?
Well, so I just got burnt out, man. I was at the time I was 30 years old, and I was I kind of had that same thing that I had with Saison, where I was like, man, is this your life? I mean, I was living in the Tenderloin of San Francisco. I had a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment that was, by San Francisco standards was big. It was maybe 800 square feet, 900 square feet, top floor.
Wow, look at you, man.
Look
it up.
I know. Penthouse. It is.
Yeah.
It would be a penthouse if it wasn't for the fact that I had to step over a homeless person or homeless shit.
Yeah,
or
in your kitchen.
hypodermic needles.
In your kitchen.
On my doorstep every single day. It was $3,300 a month.
Yeah, and it was a communal bathroom for the rest of the building also.
Absolutely.
That was the only thing wrong
And
with
the
it.
homeless people.
And the homeless people.
Absolutely. But it was funny. I owned a restaurant in the ground floor that had a commercial space, and I had a restaurant there. And I've thought it was going to be this great idea. Like, I'm going to live above the restaurant. I can just
It always looks good on paper, right? That can't possibly be a good idea.
It was a nightmare being that close to work.
Yeah, I live 10 blocks away from one of the restaurants I worked at, and that was way too fucking close, man.
Yeah, it was too close. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I was like, fuck. My living expenses are like $4,500, $5,000 a month. I'm not saving any money. I mean, could I have? I probably could have if I didn't go out drinking and partying so often. But
dude, what are you gonna fucking go home every night and count your money?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what are you gonna
hang out with the homeless?
Hang out with a homeless guy? Like, yeah, right.
Pretty much. So I don't know, man. I mean, to be honest, I did. I had a health scare. I was super unhealthy. I was working way too many hours, drinking. Surviving on coffee, alcohol, and other substances. And yeah, I mean, I had a health scare where I thought I was having a heart attack. I went to the hospital. I think I was 28 years old at the time. And it wasn't a heart attack. They gave me some, like Xanax and like Vicodin.
You're just being a pussy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Get back to work.
Yeah. They were like, what do you do? Like in the restaurants, they're like, get back to work.
Yeah,
what are you
get out of
doing
here, man. Go
Yeah.
tidy up your station.
Yeah, you're just trying to get a day off, aren't you, you lazy son of a bitch?
Here's your note.
I can't even know.
Yeah. And I got pleurisy, which is it's a tearing of the lining of your lungs that surround your lung cavities. And they were like, I was like, well, okay, what the fuck's pleurisy? And they're like, yeah, you get it. Like if you have pneumonia and you're coughing a lot, you can tear the liner.
Right.
And I was like, I haven't been sick and I haven't been coughing. And they're like, we don't know how that could just happen. And then a few weeks later, I was out. I wasn't out. I was still working, but I was in such immense pain. I had to sleep sitting up, like in this couch. I would have to sleep like this for about a week. It felt like someone was stabbing me. I went back to work like 24 hours later, of course. And then like a couple weeks later, it kind of went away. And then I woke up one day and I couldn't move. Like I couldn't close my hands. I couldn't it was like I was frozen. And the girl that I was dating at the time, I was like, you gotta can you help me get to the bathroom, shower? I felt like I was frozen, and I was like, turned the hot water on, got in the tub, and took a hot shower, and I was a really bad arthritic symptoms, and I was waking up in the morning. I was like something is fucking wrong with me. This is not normal. I shouldn't be 28, 29. Yeah. I'm feeling this way. I feel like I'm 800 years old. And so I went to the doctor, ran some tests, and I was diagnosed with some autoimmune stress-related, unhealthy stress-related autoimmune disease. And they're like, yeah, there's no cure. You just, you need to be healthier and be less stressed out. I'm like, okay, how do I do that?
It's like the Michelin-Starred disease.
Yeah, right. Seriously, yeah, that's a good point, man.
And I was like, man, I don't know how to do that. I can't work less. Right? I can't work less. And so that's when I first started thinking, I was like, man, maybe I need to rethink my whole life. And so started thinking a little bit more about am I a restaurant guy? Is this what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life? And then also am I gonna live in San Francisco for the rest of my life? And it was kind of just at that time where I was in a pretty dark place, definitely depressed. And when you're walking on your way to work and you see some bum across the street firing up his meth pipe, some other guys rubbing one out in the trash can right by your coffee shop.
San Francisco experience.
Yeah,
man.
this guy you see this guy and you're like, man, I wonder if that guy's
human shit.
I wonder if that guy's dead. You know, he's got a needle sticking out of his arm, and you're like, well, fuck, I gotta get to work. Who cares? And it was this thing where I was like, man, I don't know. This is just not what I imagined when I was doing this, that this is where I was going to be at, and this was going to be it. And so like every other California asshole, I was like, am I going to move to Austin or am I going to move to Nashville?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I had a ton of friends out there, tons of hospitality friends in Austin, and my one buddy who I got that job at the French restaurant in San Francisco, he moved here to Nashville in 2011, 12. So I'd been out here a couple times, and man, I don't know. I came out and I went to Austin and looked through it through the lens of where can I live here? Came out here for a week, did that, and also Richmond, Virginia, and Nashville felt right. I was like, fuck it, if I don't like it, I can move. But
This was 2016?
This is 2017.
2017.
Yeah,
Okay.
2016 I came out. In 2017 I moved, and yeah, I said fuck it, and I sold a restaurant. I got out of this other partner. It was like really traumatic. I mean, it was really like I felt like I was literally blowing my life up. I was like everything I knew. Like I had to talk to investors and business partners and be like, look, I have to leave. Like, and they're like, what do you mean? What about the restaurant? I'm like, I don't know. We got to figure it out. But I'm gone. I'm gone in 2017. And so that was really traumatic and really difficult. And then, I ended up going to Thailand and Vietnam for 13 weeks. It was the first vacation I'd taken in like 7 years.
Dope, man. Yeah.
And the first time I'd taken a vacation where I didn't have something burning down or on fire or dying back home. I was like, it took me like 3 weeks just to like get that PTSD of checking my phone and my emails.
I know
and being
exactly what that's like.
Being
man.
like, who didn't show up for work? Oh, the chef's shit faced, or whatever.
I think for every 1 year of grinding away in a restaurant, you need 1 month of complete like.
And no one calling you.
That's it. No one
yeah.
calling you or anything, and that's like to get yourself back to normal. Like a week is like a Band-Aid.
100%.
Take a week off. It's like, okay, it's a Band-Aid and you're right back to it. But you really want to like fix yourself and you really want to de-stress your life. Every 1 year of grinding away, you need 1 month of like doing
fully
doing
away.
yoga in the jungle, like somewhere completely out of fucking where you're supposed to be, where you can't speak the language, you don't know what's going on, and you turn off that side of your brain that's like the problem solver, back at home and all the stress back at home, and now you're on like high alert of like, I'm going to get ripped off by the cab driver.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going. These people are going to mug me. And then slowly things start to balance out. You're so focused on what's around you that you forget about all the problems that you left in the United States,
100%. And I mean, it was the first time.
Asia's a great place to do that.
Agreed,
also,
because it's so foreign and so remote.
You can't communicate.
And it was, at that time it was like you weren't super hyper connected, right? Like I didn't have like an international plan on my phone. I had to be connected to Wi-Fi and
when I moved to Spain, I'd have to call collect from like my credit card. It was
Go
like
get a card
$90 a phone call just to tell my mom I was alive every Sunday.
Exactly.
It's the best.
Yeah, it was actually kind of fun. I'd stand in a fucking payphone.
It was like the very first time that I went to Japan and Korea. It was like if I wanted to contact anybody, I had to go to internet cafe.
Internet cafe. Yeah, that too. Right, right.
And yeah, I mean, I say it jokingly, but it was like kind of my eat, pray, love moment. It did. I remember specifically. It took me almost 3-4 weeks before I kind of realized like, oh yeah, there's nothing that can go wrong back home because it was that job where it was like, well, it's also because like you're unemployed. You don't have a job. You have nothing. You're not doing anything, and that took a little bit to get over. But then eventually, I obviously fell in love with it. I was like, this is amazing. Like I don't even have to look at my phone. I was so present, and it allowed me the space finally to take this overarching view of what had been my life, and I knew that I was moving to Nashville, and that's when I started thinking like, okay, all right, so what's your next step? And I think just because it's what I had always done, I just assumed like, okay, well, like gonna open a restaurant in Nashville, you'll get there, you'll figure it out, and so moved here in 2017 and was uncertain, but still that's what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to come here, and my previous investors and partners were like, hey, let us know if you're going to open another spot. We'll open one with you out there. And so moved out here, but didn't really know anything about the food scene in Nashville. Didn't know any of the people, like only knew one person in town. That was it. And so I asked them, I was like, just give me a job at a restaurant. I was like, I just want to get a job at a restaurant and just try and see what the vibe is. So I know you're talking about them earlier, but got a job at Folk right when they opened with Phil Krajak. And the restaurant was amazing. I mean, I have so much respect for what Phil does and the food. I mean, it was very much, I was like, oh yeah, this restaurant would be on the same stage with any restaurant in San Francisco,
anywhere in the country.
Yeah, I was like, this is a real deal restaurant. This guy's a real deal. And their manager at the time, Aria, was from New York, and she was like a Daniel Boulud, like protege, whatever. And so she was running the show there, and she, I was like, oh, this is great. It's like so nice to just work, just be an employee and work. But for these people that are like, they're doing a real thing here, and this is really great. But I don't know, man. After like 3 or 4 months, I was having a blast because I was like, I'm clocking in and I'm clocking out, and like I'm good at what I do, and it was so easy to be good at it because there was no responsibility. Right. So I'd show up to work and I was like, man, there's no bad days, man. We're just fucking clocking in. We're making cash tips. We're like, there's someone wants to speak to a manager. Guess what? I go, hold on, let me go get one for you. And I'm like, hey, Aria, table 7.
Not my department, man.
Aria, table 7 is pissed. Like, can you go start to handle that, right? And then like, I clock out and then we're going to the bars. Like, life is good.
Right.
But I didn't feel that passion. I mean, honestly, I kind of got rode hard and put up wet in San Francisco, and I didn't know if I wanted to do it, and so I thought about a few other things, and real estate was one of those. A lot of my former business partners, investors, and mentors and stuff were all real estate people, owned the buildings that we had restaurants in, or owned apartment. My apartment that I lived in was owned by one of my partners in one of the restaurants, and then same with the commercial space. Like another partner owned the commercial space. So, I kind of reached out and I kept in contact with them, and they're like, "You should be in real estate." And I didn't really know what that meant, so I decided to get my real estate license and become a broker. And the rest is kind of history. Started that in 2019, and now I've been doing it. I'm in my 5th year.
2019 was 5 years ago.
It's fucking crazy.
Oh my god,
it's so fucking crazy.
I still feel like it was like
it's
a year and a half, 2 years ago.
There's also the COVID 2 years. That's like
that's
like,
time warp, man.
So you don't really know what
black
that is,
hole.
but yeah, man, it's been fucking 5 years, and man, it is really, really nice.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, man.
Holy shit! I mean, I take vacations. I still work a lot, and I still really work hard, but it's totally different work, right? Like I'm on a computer, I'm on my phone, taking people out to lunch or dinner. It's a totally different experience for me that has been a huge blessing. And like, man, I don't think I ever would have been able to do that had I stayed in San Francisco. I think I'd still be there grinding it out, getting by and doing well, but ultimately unhappy and unhealthy. And
I mean, as cliche as it sounds, and this is super cliche, and I don't even want to say it, but it's like everything happens for a reason.
Yep.
But to expand on that, it's every experience in life makes you a little smarter, sets you up for the next experience to either take it or pass it. Yeah. So I don't necessarily believe that everything happens for a reason. I think things happen and you adapt and take that information and filter it the way you do, so that when the next experience comes, you're a little bit smarter. So I think everything happens, but the reasons behind it don't show themselves till you're in the next position and be like, listen,
definitely,
this position seems like the fucking terrible thing that I just went through, and now I know where this road leads. I'm going to pass on it. So looking back, you could say, well, that happened for a reason, and now I'm passing on it. But I think it's a little broader than that. So.
Yeah, and it took me a while to kind of get to understand all that. But I mean, 100%, like the reason I am where I am right now was because of that decade of my life. And there was a ton of really amazing and great things. It was definitely not all bad. I would say it was mostly good. Mm-hmm. It obviously ended in this way that was a bit like unhealthy and traumatic and kind of, let's call it like rock bottom. But it was also because of that. Had it not been rock bottom, let's say it had just been like, okay, I probably would still be there, going, and I would have been okay for a long period of time. Like it had to get bad for me to be able to be like, okay, let's blow this up. Let's start and rebuild new. Yeah. And, and I'm super thankful for that. Mm-hmm. Also, like I got out of restaurants in 2018, and we all know what happened like during COVID. And so, people are like, oh my God, you must be so, grateful. And I'm like, look, I wish I could have said it's because I saw it coming. Like, but yeah, absolutely. Like, had I been in San Francisco still owning those restaurants, like who knows? Like who knows? And I was already in a dark place. Who knows where I would have ended up at that point? And so I'm super grateful for every experience I've had, and good and bad, and it's all contributed to the success and the happiness and how content and truly happy I am here today.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Ryan, same experience, huh?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. Huh?
I gotta say too, I'm like, it's raining out, and your sofa is just so comfortable.
I know, sorry, and I'm really boring, so I'm sorry if you. Here, Ryan, wake up, man.
Well, that's all the time we have. Thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate it.
I know, sorry. I'm not a talker.
Can't wait to have him without a talker.
I'm not a talker.
Oh man, there's a few similarities there.
Well, you're a LA guy, right?
Originally from New York.
Originally from New York, yeah.
Yep. Started
the other LA.
Yep, the other LA. But we actually left San Francisco at the same time.
Yeah, we did.
Kidding.
So
that's right.
I hopped around a little bit. Started out in New York. My family had a pizza shop, and so since 12 years old, making pizzas. Got into a little bit more of like the restaurant vibe with some local places just in my hometown.
Where's the hometown?
Rochester, New York.
Oh yeah, Rochester. Yeah, great. Man.
A lot of Italians, so a lot of good Italian food
And hardcore.
a lot of good hardcore music.
Really?
Tons, yeah.
Why?
Upstate New York.
Yeah, what
it's
else
just
do you
like
do? It's fucking cold. You're angry.
Yeah,
angry. Yeah, all of us like bitter hardcore kids.
Gross. Gross.
Yep. Still kind of into it. I don't know. Yeah. So I mean, nothing crazy food wise up there, but a lot of good Italian food. And so worked my way through, a bunch of just kind of simple restaurants around town. My favorite one was probably P.F. Chang's.
Nice, man.
That was
Love a P.F. Chang's.
Yeah.
I think between 16 to 17 years old. Also one of the only places I got fired from,
Dope.
my entire career. But that's because they also used me as a back waiter on days where I didn't cook. I just wasn't good at that, wasn't really my thing.
What'd you get fired for?
So all the servers there, they would do this thing where they would call it be like, you got to put the trays through the roof, and just like a mall thing that they would stack the trays with a bunch of plates and then hold it straight up in the air and walk around the dining room like that.
Stupidest fucking thing ever.
So stupid. Well, I did it once and it slipped and a bunch of Dan noodles smashed all over one of the Terracotta Warriors. And so
now the place is cursed.
Yeah. Well, and so the manager has to speak to me, and I'm like, okay. And so essentially I fired myself. We went into office. I was like, before you say anything, I just think this is not really working out. She's like, I was going to say the same thing. And so,
before you fire me, I quit.
Yeah, I quit. Yeah.
We just really saw eye to eye on me not working there. Which is actually really funny.
Did they give you the Terracotta Warrior? Yeah. Here, take this home with you.
They didn't. I ate family meal though, so that was good. Yeah. And then I actually got a job right outside of it at the valet stand, and that was awkward just because they would try to park their cars in the valet loop, and I was like, nope, nope. Sorry, Kathy. But either way, it was a fun intro into busy restaurants, and it also made me realize that was not the style of restaurant that I would ever want to work in.
Right.
So through a family friend who ran some restaurants for David Boulay, I was able to kind of inject myself into that fine dining world really quickly. From 18 to probably 22, just stashing around restaurants in New York, and then when some of the David Boulay crew went back to Rochester to open this restaurant, essentially in the Finger Lakes.
Oh yeah, great, because it's a great area up there.
Yeah, really
Watkins Glen.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Yeah. So took that opportunity and kind of worked my way up, getting my ass kicked by these crazy fine dining chefs, and doing tasting menus. And
was there a market for a tasting menu restaurant in Rochester, New York?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. We were pretty slow.
Yeah.
It was great. A lot of great reviews and all that. But, we were in the Constellation Wines building. So.
What's that?
Constellation Brands.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And so.
What year was this?
This is, God, probably 2008.
Yeah.
Something like that. And so, even though there wasn't a market for it in like Finger Lakes in Rochester, New York at the time. There was a market for it in that building. Mm-hmm. It was just crazy rich people constantly. And so they used us as like a, you know, if winemakers came to town or whatever, like that's just what we did.
Little show pony.
Exactly. And so it was good for me because at like 20 or 21, I became sous chef of this place. And, you know, again, like that militant French, like kind of brigade, but also like dickhead chef, and you know, taught me a bunch, but also like taught me, you know, how I didn't want to be and how I didn't want to run a kitchen.
Do you think those still exist? Quick sidebar, because I had the same thing at the French restaurant. Like chefs would like throw fucking knives and they like burned a server's hand, and I'm thinking about that now. Like that just can't happen.
No, it doesn't exist anymore.
It can't.
And if it does, the staff doesn't want to work there. I saw that shift, and you tell me what you think. I saw that shift in like 2010, 11, where kind of like the younger generation of cooks, including myself, were like, that's the way that we were brought up.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of like changing things a little bit differently, trying to be a little bit nicer. But a lot of us still had that in us.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, everything's all cool until something goes wrong, and then I become a psychopath.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to like unbrainwash
Sure.
that thought process. And now I'm just at the point where it's like, let's just come in, do our jobs, and leave.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna make mistakes. You're not gonna throw fucking
throw
rotten
stuff.
green beans at you.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's
So
scald
It's
you with
also
hot
like-
water.
It's kind of like, you don't want to yell at people if you're stoned,
Right.
You know, like
yeah.
it's like
And
a
it's
whole
like,
generation. now is
sometimes like
"Hi."
you fucking scream at people, and it's like, then I'd go home and it's like, yeah, I'm not a mean person,
Yeah.
but I don't know where it comes from. It's just like this fucking turn into the Incredible Hulk, and then you go home and you think, like, I just screamed at the fucking dishwasher who's fucking 15 years older than me, and she's got a family with kids, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing?
And we're doing, and it's food.
And it's
we're
like, what are we
making
doing,
food
man? Who
for
gives a
people.
shit?
Yeah.
You know, or like you make somebody cry, and it's just like, oh man, like I feel like a complete asshole. You know,
It really doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter, man. Yeah.
But it was that experience. It was like that same classic French.
Oh yeah, this dude would like heat
Tell
up
you
a
he's gonna
spoon on
fuck your
the
mom.
French
burn
chop,
the spoons.
burn the back of our arms, you
Yeah.
know, as we're plating.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons
get outta
I
here.
never went to work in the UK or London, because I heard how physical the fucking kitchens were there.
Yeah.
And I worked at some fucking hard kitchens in the United States.
Yeah.
And like there, it's like they punch you in the chest, they burn you with spoons, they fucking stab you, and I'm just like, I'm not fucking going there. These people are nuts.
It's not worth
you
it.
know?
I don't love anything that much.
Yeah.
I mean, I used it as like a motivator. I was like, you know, 21, 22, and getting like, I was also a hardcore kid, and like, I'm like, man, you're screaming at me in front of everybody, but like I'm fighting people at hardcore shows. Like later, I'm like, something's not lining up here,
Right.
And
Yeah.
so we would get into it, and it's like, you know what, this is great, but I'm not going to act like this when I run a kitchen.
Right.
I was like, I'm also going to be better than you. Like it was just such a motivator. I was just like, it's like, no, this is not cool.
I think it was also one of those things, like, that's all I knew. This is how I was trained for for 10 years plus. This is how I was trained. So that's all I knew. I didn't work for any other chefs. Like I always wish that I'd worked for like, you know, like Eric Rupert, like Bernardin, who has like a Buddhist Zen way he runs
just
the
someone
kitchen.
sweet.
Yeah, it's a sweet guy. And if you get into an argument with someone, there's a huge meeting at the end and you have to apologize to each other. And I didn't hear about that till like later on in life. And I was just like, fuck, that really exists?
You're like,
I was like, oh my God, you know?
Concept.
Yeah. So
So once I finished up in the Finger Lakes, you know, I was still like very young at that point, kind of wild. I was like, okay, I'm gonna either go back to New York and just live in the city and just kind of plant my, you know, feet there, or LA. But in the meantime, I was going to Japan for a while. And so I think it was 22, and I had a buddy that was living in Seoul at the time. And so essentially went to Seoul for like 6 months, and then in between that to Japan for about 3 months.
wow.
We both just had our skateboards, and from
You flew
restaurants.
with skateboards to Seoul, Korea.
oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
That's great.
A buddy of ours like owned a skate like distribution company in Seoul, and so like we skated, we ate, staged, like literally it was like the best 6 months, you know, of my life.
It sounds dope.
It sounds epic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like kind of like that. I didn't really have any responsibility back then anyways, like even in the restaurants, but just one of the best 6 months. And then afterwards I was like, it was fully, I was in. I was like, all right, restaurants forever.
What kind of places were you working at in Seoul?
In Seoul, I didn't work
In-N-Out Burger?
Yeah. Seoul was skateboarding.
Oh, just skateboarding. Yeah,
Skateboarding,
okay.
eating.
Okay.
Going to the markets, like was actually like, everyone chef wise talks about, the old like Tsukiji market, and it's incredible and mind blowing, yada yada. But the fish market in Seoul was actually, it blew my mind like 3 times harder. Like it was just like I would spend at least a meal there a day, just hitting these different stands and then going to like the little like side restaurants where they prepare all the food for you.
That's what I love about in Vietnam
incredible.
too. Like Vietnam was such a like, you talk about the Union Square market, you talk about the Santa Monica market. When you get to Asia, those fucking markets,
It's a whole nother level.
It's like this lady had, this enormous 10-foot table filled with things I'd never even seen before. Like maybe like I know that's dragon fruit. I know that's like durian. But everything else was like, I don't even know what the fuck this is, man. I remember the first time I ate a mangosteen. I had to like Google what it was. And then like right next to that is like the stall where they're making all the noodles and soups, and it's all under one open roof. And it's so fucking cool. So that was like I never been to any markets in Seoul, but those
that was incredible. And then, I mean, after that, after that trip, I was kind of, also it just kind of like propelled me into like my love for Asian cuisine. I was just like, this is.
So how'd you get to Japan then from Seoul? I mean, it's only a 45-minute flight, but
that's how we flew.
Right. Yeah. Well, obviously you didn't skateboard over.
No.
What brought you there?
Just, I think, getting into fine dining, before that, I think especially like in those early 2000s,
especially
like,
Boulay,
everybody would look, everybody would
he
look
was
at
so
Japan,
he was like one of the first guys that I was reading about that was using like Japanese techniques and
exactly. And so there was just in the kitchens at that time, there was just so much talk
that's cool,
of Japan and the food. And so we went, and it was a lot of fun because most of the stuff we did was like cheap. We weren't 22 with our skateboards eating at 3 Michelin-Star sushi restaurants. Like I couldn't even fathom how to pay for that.
Right. But Japan, and Kris, you were just, we've all been there. Kris, you were just there. Like Japan is a place where you could leave your apartment or hotel and be like, do I want to spend $5 today or do I want to spend $500?
Yep.
And there's everything's in front of you, man.
Yeah. We did that.
What were you
night.
eating? Like ramen? Tons of ramen?
Tons of ramen.
Tons of skewers?
Tons of skewers. Yeah. Like kushiyaki, like just, I mean, all of the street food.
Yeah.
Tonkatsu
is my favorite. When you go to a tonkatsu restaurant.
That became like a thing for me.
Yeah.
Like now it's like, if I go, the very first thing I want is tonkatsu.
Yeah.
That's like every single time.
Or one of those little triangle rice things from 7-Eleven.
Yep.
Right when I land, it's like you hit
Fantastic.
7-Eleven straight away, man. Yeah.
The 7-Eleven game there is mind blowing.
Yeah. So this story, okay, maybe you could tell. The story that I heard was when I was living in Japan, there's a 7-Eleven every 30 feet.
Yeah.
And if you stand in the middle of the street, that's all you see is 7-Eleven signs. So the one friend of mine explained it to me. He said, we got to think about it. Like in these 2 buildings here, there's probably 1 million people that live in this section right here. How big Tokyo is. So he goes, there's a 7-Eleven. They're not going to, why would they walk, 15 minutes that way when they just have one here? And that's 7-Eleven's game.
Yeah.
So 7-Eleven realized like that these people are like shopping here so much that they put a lot of effort and emphasis into the culinary program. And even the people in Japan say that the hot pot at 7-Eleven is one of the best hot pots in Tokyo.
Yeah, I
So,
got
I mean,
that
it's
feedback
incredible.
too, and
Yeah.
Soft serve.
So
and
that
it's
soft
just
serve,
like-
the sweet potato soft serve. I think it was Rocio Sanchez turned me on. I was like, you gotta try this, and I was like, it's 7-Eleven.
Fried chicken?
She's like, you gotta fucking try.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah,
I mean, I would rather eat 7-Eleven
every day.
Japanese food than like most of the restaurants
Every
in America.
day, yeah.
Yeah.
So you left. How long you were there? A couple months.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, it was it was
But
odd,
you
like,
weren't working. You were just like skateboarding and eating around.
skateboarding, eating, hanging. Actually staged at this, it was a friend of a friend who was in Osaka, but they were doing Israeli Japanese.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was like
Sounds great.
this tiny little cafe, like, I don't know, it was very picturesque, like overlooking this little park. And I don't know, Osaka was probably and still is now, like my favorite city to visit.
Yeah.
So the food's incredible, like the partying is fun. It's like, it's just a vibe. I think you spend less money there than you do in Tokyo.
Yeah,
Tokyo.
Tokyo is expensive, and I haven't traveled around Japan that much because everything was so centralized in Tokyo. Went to Kyoto a couple times, but I never really got outside of that, which is unfortunate.
I mean, that trip, like, I was young, but it inspired me in so many ways. It's like now I have a sake company where, our brewery that we've partnered with is in Kyoto, and they've,
Where do you think you'd be if you didn't go to Seoul and Japan?
Jesus, who knows?
Still be at punk shows in
Italian
Rochester?
food?
Maybe in just cooking Italian food in
jail.
Rochester. Or in jail.
Jail.
Just have a huge belly with, like, band shirts that are too tight or something. Like, God, you know what I mean? Who knows?
Tour shorts from 20 years ago they're still wearing.
Oh, God. Yeah, I might still just be doing that.
Yeah.
Probably,
What happened when you left? You left and you came back to...
Immediately, within like probably 4 or 5 days, moved to LA.
Mm-hmm. Why?
I had a bunch of friends there.
Oh, right on, yeah.
Sent out my resume and ended up getting a call as my plane was landing with a chef there. There's like a very well-known chef at the time, Govan Armstrong.
Oh, yeah, man.
And like, he's like still one of my best friends to this day.
What's he doing now? Fuck, I haven't heard that name in years, man.
Yeah, he's got still a few restaurants around the country.
Yeah.
And another restaurant in Santa Monica.
Dude, he was on top of the world in like early 2000s, maybe?
Yeah.
Mid 2000s, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. And then this was probably, I don't know, 2009 or I don't know. I get the years all confused. I'm old now. But meeting him was fantastic because we dove right in. I was a sous chef at this restaurant he was opening called Post and Beam. That restaurant was incredible.
I remember
a bunch of cool accolades, and it was my first time after doing like the kind of that New York Michelin chef, this is what fine dining is, to working with someone who was at Arzac and was at all these crazy fine dining places, but he was like bringing fine dining and like the technique and all that, but into something very casual. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait, this could be fun.
Right.
It's like you're,
who are you?
You're cooking in like nice shirts and, beautiful watch and, dreadlocks, and we're just like hanging out, but we're actually doing really good food. I was like, it was like this kind of epiphany moment of like, wow, you can do things of quality, but you don't need to be a dick.
And you don't need to be a dick, right?
And it showed with the food and everything else. And it's like those early days would be like all these, chefs in LA, John and Vinny, Ludo, like they would all be coming in there. And it's just like this kind of off the beaten path, like really cool restaurant. Then we opened another, at that point I was the chef of his group, but then we opened another spot called Willie Jane in Venice. It was just like a really good, like 4 or 5 years of, essentially like learning someone else's style while being able to like kind of hone what I thought I was as like my own. And so just like a really, really cool, like learning experience. Plus like it was LA. So I just, if I wasn't working, I was partying.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I mean, really fantastic. Got to the point though of LA where I was like looking for a little bit of a change, and I kind of, I don't know why, maybe because I'm a crazy person, but I had that like itch to get back into the realm of super serious where everyone's running around like crazy and
Why do we do this to ourselves?
Yeah, I don't.
Like why?
I had a good thing going.
It's like a toxic relationship, man. It's like I
man.
gotta get out of this toxic relationship, and then you get into something that's like very stable and organized and
like,
loving, and you're just like,
I want to feel that again. I
fuck, man, I miss the chaos.
I want to feel that pain.
Yeah, pain. I want the pain.
So I was like, thinking about my next steps, and like met this girl who, was living in San Francisco, and I was like, that'd be kind of a fun move. Like there wasn't any restaurants in LA at the time. There was no Michelin guide there at the time, so nobody was like.
What were the top restaurants back then?
Was Providence?
Providence,
yeah, really like
David. Did this guy David Myers had a restaurant which we talked about? I don't remember who we talked about it with. Sona or Soma.
And then he had Hinoki and the Bird.
Yes, that's it. Yes, that's the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, because we talked about him. He was also a Singapore dude for a bit.
Yeah. La Orangerie. Was that still around? Maybe I'm pronouncing
that was
it wrong.
not.
No.
Then Jordan Kahn's place, Red Medicine.
Oh, Red Medicine. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That was.
That's
was
where
probably
Lena and Brian from Kisser worked.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
That was a
John
fun
and
restaurant.
Vinny. Who else? Providence, John and Vinny.
I mean, Ludo's restaurants, whatever.
Ludo,
he was doing
yeah.
at the time.
Trois Mac.
Yeah.
Petit Trois.
I mean, then there's the Mozza and Nancy.
Yeah,
Nancy
Silverton.
Yeah.
Yeah, her restaurants are always fantastic.
Yeah.
and
But
some
there
of my
wasn't. I
favorites.
mean, I don't know. There wasn't anything really like holy fuck.
Yeah, nothing like
Michelin,
mind blowing.
when did Michelin Guide start hitting LA? That was like not. It was like 2016.
Yeah, 2015.
15,
I think.
16. It's kind of late, huh?
No, it had to be before that.
I don't know, man. It was like
Was-
kind of
was-
late.
It was like a whole big thing when they
Yeah,
brought it back.
They did Northern California first, right?
Yeah, but honestly, I think it was like 2015 because when we opened Saison, I would travel to LA and their Michelin wasn't there yet. So
'Cause it was in Northern California for
it
a
was
long
in Northern
time.
California for a bit, but
Yeah.
it was.
That was in Vegas because all the French chefs
Yeah,
from,
but I don't think it hit LA until
No kidding.
I think it was like 15.
Because it was very interesting when it hit LA.
Yeah.
Like there was a few restaurants where it was like, yeah, that's definitely a Michelin restaurant, and then there's a few that are like kind of head scratchers.
Yeah.
I wonder how Michelin does that. Like it almost seems like a disservice. Like do the whole fucking United States or don't do anything.
Yeah.
Like I get it. Like they're not in the business of giving out stars. They're in the business of selling a magazine.
Definitely.
So I get
Yeah.
it. But it's like somebody asked me, "Oh, do you think they'll ever do, Nashville and Tennessee?" And it's like, I mean, the market isn't big enough. But then somebody told me that they're going to sweep the whole South, starting from like Texas all the way, and do like a whole South
kind of
Michelin Michelin thing.
Doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think they will. I think it'll happen eventually.
I
One
think
day.
it'd
It's
be great.
inevitable,
Yeah.
right?
But it's like how many restaurants from here to Texas could get 3 Michelin stars?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely.
I mean,
none in
Business wise,
Nashville.
though, like I think running a restaurant or owning a restaurant and just like being able to kind of be in that realm, like even when my restaurant in San Diego got Michelin Bib Gourmand, I mean, we were the next day twice as busy.
Yeah,
it's been
yeah,
that
right,
busy.
right,
It's
right, yeah.
held that busy for the last like 3 years.
Yeah, I was at this place Perennial in Chicago. We got a Bib Gourmand. I didn't even know what the fuck it was.
Yeah, it's
All I knew is I woke
what
up
is
one day and
this?
everyone's congratulating me, and I was like, "For what?" And then like spray painted like in front of the restaurant, like the Michelin guy.
Yeah.
And then like somebody had to explain to me what it was. It's like
Yeah.
an honorable mention. I'm like,
Yeah.
thanks,
Right.
participation award.
Yeah, that's
Thanks for
right.
thinking of me.
That's right.
Like, not to take
Yeah.
away. Your place was probably a lot better though. But
I mean, either it just made us.
I mean,
it made us
you
busier.
you obviously deserved it.
So did you.
Thanks, man. All right.
We're all great runners up.
Yeah, right.
We're almost
Runners
we're all almost good enough.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Man.
Where
Yeah,
were we?
San Francisco.
So San Francisco.
San Francisco. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so immediately kind of, started talking with different chefs in San Francisco, just through other like connections that I've made in LA, really to figure out the next step. And I also kind of didn't want to jump into like something management wise. Like I've been managing people at that point for like 6-7 years and just kind of over it. And so I had the opportunity to, again, do that whole thing of like get my ass kicked while figuring things out. someone was like, "Oh yeah, Quan needs a little bit of help," but it was like, well, Matt Kirkley was there, and I'm like, so I did that for a little bit. I was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, that's the next level.
I was like, "This is."
Good old Daniel Patterson.
Like it's been a while, and like truly like I don't know, bonkers. I'm like okay, well this was a great way to get my feet wet again, to the point where I was like, damn, I'm glad this is only like temporary.
Yeah.
Incredible stuff. Like that guy is just insane, so talented. But then I met Dominique Crenn, and we had a couple of meetings and talked about our first meeting was to be the chef of Petite Crenn, and then our second meeting was to be the chef of her group, and then our third meeting I'm like meeting all the investors, and we're like, okay, like can you just be our director and kind of like do everything? She's like, you're good at managing people, I like your look, plus like you can use it in the kitchens. I'm like,
I like your look.
Yeah, I'm like,
very Dominique
I'm
Crenn.
like, yeah, she's.
I'm gonna put you on the menu. I'm gonna write a poem about
I
you.
like your shoes. You're gonna be a manager.
She's like, I like that you came to this interview in a leather jacket. Like,
did you realize like this is all I own?
like, I'm like, I literally only have. It was cold, and it's the only jacket.
This is my dress up clothes.
So good.
And she just like had this vibe to her. I was just like, you're so fucking awesome.
Yeah, she's really cool.
And so, yeah, like the next week, I went from kind of being unemployed and like having some fun just around different kitchens in San Francisco to being the director of operations of our group.
Which ones?
That was Qua.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Qua, and then like his other restaurants, Alta, and then what was the steakhouse called?
I was gonna say, did you have a steakhouse?
Yeah,
Took over the famous
Elizabeth.
I forget what it's called.
Wasn't it Elizabeth?
No, not
Daniels?
Elizabeth.
No.
But that was actually fun. Like the days I would spend there were really fun because the chef that was running that place, his name's Charlie Parker. Awesome dude. Like really, really fun to work around. So it was just like I was probably there helping out.
What makes him fun to work around? Like what?
He's just like a fun dude. He's
like
also an animal.
Yeah.
Like so get like super pissed, but at the same time like just the way he would crack jokes, and like his food was really good. It was just a good atmosphere to be around. Just interesting. Didn't really like working in a steakhouse, but I was like, everything was temporary, Yeah. I'd like, they'd be like, oh, our mixologist or whatever they called him at the time, just walked out. They're like, do you think you can like go batch stuff? Do you know how to make cocktails? I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. So I go into this creepy basement and start like doing all their barrel aging stuff. And I'm like, this is just kind of fun. But anyways,
I cannot make a fucking mixed drink to save my life. I can't even make a gin and tonic without like measuring it out, and then I'm like, oh, it's too much, it's too little. Like my brother Matthew always makes fun of me. He's like, this is the worst drink I ever had. Like I am not. If he's around, I am not allowed to make drinks.
Such little bits to measure.
It's an
I don't know what it
it's
is.
equal parts.
I mean,
how do
I
you mess it up?
I fucking do. It's the size of the glass is different all the time. Like I'm making fucking gin and tonics in a pint glass. It's like, like I don't know what it is about my brain that I cannot measure a fucking cocktail.
It just, they're better when someone else makes it for you anyways.
That's it. Tastes better.
That's true.
But so I was just, I was having a good time dating this new girl, doing the San Francisco thing, living in Soma, paying too much for rent, while stepping over needles, and, it was great. And then, signed the papers and became director of operations for Crenn Group.
Jesus.
And that was wild. It went from like having very chill days for the most part to
to waking up in the morning and not being
90-hour
able to clench your hands.
All of a sudden my hands wouldn't move.
I heard this story before.
Babe, I gotta get in the bathtub.
I know how it ends. And now I'm selling tiny homes in Nashville.
That's right.
Exactly. I wish.
I right.
But so that was actually, it was challenging, but it was really fun. We immediately jumped into Petite Crenn. Like it was a pretty fresh restaurant at the time, but needed a kind of quick overhaul.
Was Petit Creme, that was in Hayes Valley?
In Hayes Valley,
yeah.
yeah.
That's right.
Such a cool little spot.
Yeah, it was.
And
It's still there, no?
it is. It
Yeah.
closed for a while, like with the pandemic
Yeah.
and then all this other stuff, but they are like reopening pretty soon. That was between that and then kind of like restructuring things and doing a bunch of work at Atelier Creme. One of Dominique's good friends, who's a chef that was also around, kind of, there's just a lot of hands, like kind of helping out, getting everything going, and that was Matt Leitner. And like, I would say in that
Super
year,
talented guy,
getting
yeah.
to work around, getting to work around him for even like the 2-3 months that he was around was just like incredible.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite chefs, man. I
That's-
always like everything he ever done. Yeah.
Yeah, easily one of the most talented people in the country.
Where's he now?
He just opened a restaurant, I think in Oregon.
Really?
I think, yeah, in the Willamette.
Huh. Cool.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd like to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so really like an incredible year to be around everybody that was just like pushing for all of these goals of like, really just Michelin at the time. At the time we were 2 Michelin at Atelier Creme, but everyone there was just pushing for 3.
That's, I don't know. I always thought that that's such a weird thing to open a business and say you want to achieve.
Yeah, it was
Like there,
interesting.
I read an article one time. I'm not gonna say who it was, but in the article, it was basically, we're opening this restaurant to be the best restaurant, to be on the 50's best list, to get 3 Michelin stars, to be the best restaurant in the country, blah blah blah. And there was no mention of, we have an idea about hospitality.
And we love food.
We love food. We want to welcome people into the restaurant. Like we're really gonna like upgrade the service and make sure everybody feels like they're at home. Not a morsel anywhere in the article about what we're gonna do for the community. How we have a great. We're gonna pay our staff this. We're gonna really try to like incubate a fight. And I was just like, fuck, man. Like
This is our goal.
they're saying the quiet part out loud. Like so. But I guess like at that situation, like if you have 2, you might as well just fucking go for 3.
And see, that's like, in my opinion, that's where the downfall comes. It's like when you get that first one, like, no one, I'm sure maybe some people that's very minority are going to be like, my goal is to number 1, San Pellegrino number 1, 3 Michelin star, 4 years. Most people aren't that crazy, but I feel like what happens is you get that first Michelin star. It's like that first hit. You're like, oh, well, now I need to get 2.
So let me ask you both this. Do you think like you have a restaurant, you're doing your thing, you're happy with what's going on, this is our style, then you get 1 Michelin star, and I think you start cooking for what people think you are instead of what you are. And you got that star because of what you do, and now you're doing something completely out. You're under this pressure that you're only putting on yourself to be something that you're not, trying to appease people that really don't give a shit, and you kind of alienate some of the people that were coming there for the right reasons. You think that's a fair statement?
From running the restaurants that have 1 star to 3 stars to dining in them all, I have had so much more fun and better experiences dining at 1 Michelin star restaurants. And the people who are happy with 1 star because they were just doing their thing and they happened to get a star.
Yeah.
And they just kept it that way. Yeah. Like places like, did you ever eat at Al's Place?
Yeah.
Like that restaurant, like you're like, what? Kind of weird that it had a Michelin star, but it was fucking fantastic.
He was incredibly talented chef.
Super talented. But then they never tried to change anything either. They didn't try to like make it fancier or like ruin the vibe. It was like, I think, like, why does it's like you get 1, just chill.
Just chill. Wow, what a great honor. Thanks. We still have a pizza on the menu.
Just have some fun with it.
I think Jeremy Fox is a great example of that. Of like, man, I love that guy so much, man. It's just like, this is what we do. Like, fuck it. We got this award. This is great. Thanks. We kind of don't want it. Like, I don't really know what to do with this now. I don't want this pressure, but this is still what we do. And I always look at him as like the gold standard of I'm gonna cook the food that I want to cook, no matter what anybody's saying, man. And I think it's a great way to like approach things. But the Michelin, I think it's a Michelin curse sometimes,
Definitely.
and what it does to the psyche of a chef in a restaurant, and then you're putting extra pressure on the people around you for no apparent reason at all.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, and it was like, at that point, career-wise for me, like I've worked in Michelin restaurants, but I was never running anything. Now with Kren, it was just like balls to the wall. Everyone was just like going for this 3rd star. From like remodels to spending cash on Salta glassware and
the glassware is god.
I mean,
it's like if I look at this wine glass wrong, it's gonna crack.
Oh, for sure. But then all of a sudden, like, you know, we're spending money on new chairs, new plateware, new glassware, like bringing in like a kind of a corporate chef, and you know that was incredibly talented, and just pulling out all this stuff to like make it. And then all of a sudden you get 3 stars. And you're like, oh shit, so this is how it works.
This is how,
you just like,
how it works.
You bring more and more. It's almost like
a pay to play.
Building up like the Lakers or something, you know? It's like,
I mean, there's kind of a guidebook for it.
So something interesting happened in Chicago back when I think it was, no, it wasn't with Michelin, but it was Schwa, the restaurant Schwa, if you guys are familiar. It's like for me, it was the first like 20-seat restaurant, chefs running the food. It was the first time I saw that. I think it had been going on around other places in the country, but it was in Chicago and I went there all the time. It was like this rock and roll kind of blah, blah, blah. The chefs are fucking crazy. The tasting menu, the food is what it is. It's in this little storefront. And there's no servers. It's BYOB. And they got like 4 stars in the Tribune because it's an awesome dining experience. And I think it was, I could be wrong, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Charlie Trotter came out and said, you know, we need to adjust the scale of how we rate things, because you have some restaurants that put so much time and money into everything you mentioned: the stemware, the glassware, the plateware, the ambiance, the fucking wine list, the reserve wine list, the product,
ironing
the product, shaving. Everybody looks this way. That the presentation of the front of the house of the restaurant, which is what you're also rating the restaurant on of service. How can you have this restaurant in the same category as this restaurant that has no service, no wine list, no SOP on service, no standard operating procedure of clearing and marking
at the same time in unison.
Guys coming out and being like, "You're gonna fucking love this dish, man! It's so fucking good. The place smells like pot."
Yeah.
You know, it was a very good fucking point.
Yeah.
And I had thought about it for a long time, and I think Michelin sort of kind of does it, but in these local kind of like rating systems, like the New York Times and Chicago Tribune and the LA Times, you have 1 to 4 stars. If you open a restaurant that's a fast casual restaurant, the maximum you can go to is 1 star, no matter what. If you want to get 2 stars, here's the criteria of things that you need to have at this restaurant. You need to have servers, you need to have tables, you need to have, this and that. And if you want to go from 2 stars to 3 stars, then you need to, we have to have tablecloths, you have to have, a wine list. And then if you want to go from there has to be a category. And if you want to change your category, you have to submit in writing, "We are ready to change. Please come back out and review us by this day. We've met this criteria. Here's whatever the questionnaire is. Submit it to whoever does it, and then you're put into that category. And they can come in and say, you know what? You didn't reach everything. You're still 1 star. Here's X, Y, and Z." In the article they can write.
Yeah.
And I think like that would be like the most diplomatic way of doing it. But
we could tell you bought this glassware on sale.
100%. This is great and barrel. And it's also, but on the flip side, that is, why does the fucking glassware have anything to do with the experience or what the food tastes like? So there's too many arguments in this particular topic, but I do see, if it was Charlie Trotter that said it, that's a fucking amazing point. Like, how can you take this restaurant that is a counter service restaurant and put it in the same category as us?
The 4-star taco truck.
Right. Yes.
Charlie Trotter.
Right. Or the 2-star Michelin noodle place in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
All the
Singaporean
Singaporean stalls. It's like what are we doing? Like, what the fuck are we doing? So.
Yeah, it's.
I don't know where that tangent was. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I don't really know where that tangent was going, but
you know what I think. For me, what I've learned over the years is like with the Michelin stuff is like, it's just like a great like jump off. Like it's so kind political. Of like it's super political and like, once I, after doing the Kren stuff, like I would have stayed with her for a long time, but I just had to get out of San Francisco. was having a baby, and I remember we had this like kind of San Francisco moment where we're like, okay, if we get a bigger place, it's gonna be like 4,000 or 5,000 a month, and at the same time, there's like needles and homeless people outside, and we had a puppy at the time. I still have this puppy; it's just now a dog. But
How'd that happen?
we were going to like a nice little kind of like, it loved running on the beach, like just playing fetch or whatever. So we go on Ocean Beach, and like, puppy's so cute playing around, and then like I look down and there's just a bunch of needles in the sand that we almost like stepped on, and I'm just like, I'm gonna
Time to
fuck
go,
out of here.
man.
Like I'm not raising a kid here. Like
to
this
go.
is a kind of a fun city, but it's like dirty, and Oakland's better. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
so
let's
with
just
both
get
of
out
you,
here.
why didn't you just move to Oakland or San Jose or across the bridge? Like, is it just not feasible if you're living in San Francisco or working in San Francisco?
I think if I had moved to San Francisco earlier, like I think if this was like 2014 or something and not 17, maybe I would have went to Oakland. But at that point too, like so many people I knew that were in Oakland, like, in all like the natural wine bars and this and that, they were all starting to move out of the Bay Area too. It was like an exodus.
Yeah.
Like they were all moving to LA. I mean,
For
even
me-
the guy that connected us, Brett, like
That's right.
he moved to LA. Like
Yeah, and for me it was like, no, like if I'm like I want to live in fucking San Francisco. Like I don't want.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to. I don't have to. I don't have to take a train an hour in because I can't afford to live in this city that's like my city. Like I don't want to live in Oakland. I want to
Yeah.
live in San Francisco. And no, okay, I can't. I don't want to afford it. And it was and yeah, I think that was kind of always my take on it. It was like, no, I don't want to go. Sure, I go fucking live in Pittsburgh. 2 hours up by train and have it's fun. But I'm like, I want to live in San Francisco. And it's,
Yeah.
and also just it was. Also, working in San Francisco, I mean, there was that aspect of it too, where really it also became about the work. It's like, even if I didn't live there, just being in San Francisco, it kind of got a little bit depressing.
Yeah.
for sure.
For me, it was like with LA. It's like, I'm going to move to California, LA. I want to be by the beach.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole point of, like, why would I want to live in Echo Park? Like, I could be anywhere in the United States. It doesn't fucking matter.
Bakersfield. right?
Bakersfield,
Like-
yeah. And then
Well,
if you live
let's
on
be real. There's a difference between Echo Park and Bakersfield.
not much. Fresno. But it's like you live in Echo Park or Silver Lake, and it's like you're never going to the beach. Or if it is, it's like a planned vacation. You know?
Yeah.
So it's not like, I'll just live here, and it's like a 20-minute drive to the beach, like no problem.
I probably went to. I mean, I ran plenty of restaurants around like Silver Lake and Echo Park, and I couldn't tell you the times I went to the beach.
Right.
Then again,
I've been in
like
San Francisco for 12 years, I could probably count how many times I went to the beach on two hands.
Right.
we opened that restaurant Willie Jane, like this is years ago before everything, and that was on Abbot Kinney in Venice. And I remember I was like, all right, this is it. I'm gonna buy a surfboard, so I bought a surfboard. I went to the beach probably 3 times in like the 2 years that I worked.
But for me, it's like I want to know that I have access to the beach.
Yeah, you want to know it's there.
Right. So when I moved to Nashville, I rented this. I had to like spur of the moment kind of rent a place because I was moving in 2016, and I rented a place that had a pool. Yeah. And I was like, oh fuck, sick, a pool. It's one of those huge complexes like kind of near the Gulch. And I think I went to the pool once. Mm-hmm. Then when I was moving out, before I bought a house, I was moving out. And I was just going to move into like another complex because I hated living there because it was just fucking loud. It was like a dorm room. You know? And every place I looked at, it had to have a pool. I'm like, oh, this place doesn't have a pool. And it wasn't that I wanted a pool. It was I wanted to know that I had access to the pool. So that one time a year when I wanted to go, I was like, I got a fucking pool. Like that was almost worth it to me to pay the extra rent for the pool just to know that it was there. Which is the stupidest fucking thing I ever think of,
It's definitely stupid.
Yeah, but that would have been me living in Venice, paying hundreds of dollars more in rent, just to say like I could go to the beach whenever I wanted. Probably would never go.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, almost my entire time in LA, like pre and then even during the pandemic when I lived there and just before it, like I lived in downtown. Yeah. And it's a shithole, but I also I love it.
Yeah, it's where all the good food is though too.
You know, I love downtown LA.
So what brought you to Nashville then?
God, well that's so after San Francisco, I was consulting a little bit before it and then consulting afterwards, going to Singapore a lot, opened a place in Singapore, and then was just kind of feeling like, in San Francisco, we wanted to, raise the kid or have the kid somewhere like a little bit beachy, chill. So we kind of picked San Diego. And, San Diego was great on paper because I was like, well, we can move there. I don't have to work anywhere, because there was definitely like no restaurants to work at that were like good or in like a realm of, anything that I like felt like working on, especially coming off like that ego trip of like Kren and whatever.
3 Michelin stars.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I don't want to work anywhere here. I was like, maybe I'll just pour wine somewhere and like consult in Singapore. And so it's kind of what I did. And then I got linked up with these people that were also from Singapore that happened to move to San Diego, and we all wanted to just open up a restaurant. And so we did this kind of like Balinese Singaporean restaurant, natural wine bar. And this is like when that was like kind of just starting to get popular.
Yeah.
And it was kind of slow for the first like 3 months because no one knew what the fuck it was. And then, 6 months later, it was like Eater's Restaurant of the Year and Michelin were almost good enough.
Yeah.
And all that, and it became this like really busy thing, and it's just such a rad restaurant. But after a year and a half of doing that, and I was just like, all right, San Diego's not it for me. So I went back to LA, did some more stuff with like Friedman's, and we opened this place called Greekman's. And then same thing, I was like, all right, ready for like something else. And so my business partner that I'm working with now, we have a few projects we're doing. He was already here. I originally was just going to come and essentially travel here, work, and then, travel back to LA. It's just going to be a back and forth thing. But I came here a few times and I was like, this place is rad. It kind of had everything that I was looking for at the time. And so we kind of put it all on paper and we're like, well, let's just, let's move to Nashville. And so moved here and just same thing. Like I didn't want to jump into anything. Like there's great restaurants, but it's like, I'll just consult and kind of, figure out my plan. So I started coming here almost monthly because we were looking for spaces for our restaurant and brewery. And, just sort of fell in love with it. And then once we got here, it was just like, all right, this is cool. Like live in East Nashville and,
Living the dream.
Living the dream, I guess. Like, it's different.
Yeah.
Much different from, all the other places that I've lived. But at the same time, like it just, I think the ease of living plus like the time I had allowed me to, still consult like, in Asia and in LA and San Diego. And so I was like, I think since I moved here probably almost 2 years ago now, I've been out of town at least monthly.
Yeah.
Almost if you put it all down on like a calendar, probably a week out of every month since I've moved here, I've been gone. But at the same time, like it's been a really great experience. And then the people that I've gotten linked with, like you two, it's just like, it's such a cool little community. And like a lot of the chefs here are really rad. And, it's a fun city. So I decided to like, just kind of plant my feet and like stop jumping around.
Yep.
It's like, my daughter at that point is like, she's starting kindergarten. I'm like, well, I'm not going to keep
ripping her
bouncing her around. Like, so now we're all situated and, I guess jumping to now, we're about to open up a restaurant in a few weeks here. And
where's that at?
That's in Wedgwood, Houston.
Yeah.
That'll be called Present Tense.
So it used to be the Heart Hotel.
Yeah. So it was Bento Hotel in the Heart, which was one of my consulting projects. Kind of like, was like a creative director for what was going on in the hotel, and then everything for the restaurant. So wine program, sake, all the food. And it was like it was really fun. I say like on the consulting side, really you're putting in like 50% of like, what you have to give.
Yeah, right.
It's just like, why would you give much more than that? It's like, and so we had something like really fun, but the hotel had sold to a new group. And so they didn't want to continue any of the F&B. So they shut everything down. And that's why, the heart closed, which my contract would have been up anyways in like 3 or 4 months after that. But really fell in love with the space and like, you know, was there all the time, like did so much to get it to where it was. And then when we had the opportunity to purchase it and, you know, buy it all out, we kind of just jumped at it. And so we took over the heart space, plus we had a little bodega that I kind of just turned into, I call it like my ADD shop. So it's like crazy amounts of like sake, natural wine, but like all these crazy snacks and like high quality condoms and lube and just like everything, everything you want in a good hotel.
Are you cooking with that? Or?
Yeah, of course. Just like a proper hotel bodega.
Yeah.
Which now is actually kind of turning into our little like flagship bodega
Condom shop.
condom shop.
Yeah. Nudie magazine store.
Really going back to our Japan thing, you know, like a
like
Japan
that.
7-Eleven, really just taking that and really turning it into like, you know, our version of that here.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, just doing a whole coffee shop and, you know, matcha focused kind of fun program there. And
Return to Asia.
yeah, and then the restaurant space, like focusing on kind of like rustic Japanese cooking.
I love it.
This stuff that I kind of like, really just cooking the stuff that made me fall in love with food. You know, it's been kind of like a journey to get to where I am now. So it's like, I'm just going to cook the food that I want to cook and have fun doing it. And that's where we're at.
Yeah. Oh, fucking great, man. I love it. Speaking of Japan, Kris, you just got back from. This is your first time there.
First time, 15 days.
Tell us everything, man.
I'm
So
ready.
being a first timer, like what did you expect, and then how did that change?
Man, Japan's been on my radar for, I don't know. I mean, I wanted to go there probably. I mean, really, San Francisco getting open to a lot more food from an ethnic standpoint, Japanese food, Chinese and Vietnamese and Laotian, and I always loved. I mean, I loved sushi, like absolutely loved sushi, and then also just like every idiot, like Jiro dreams of sushi, and it was like, man, it's just so cool. It just seems like everyone there is so intent, has so much intention about what they do, and there's all these people that are like trying to become masters of their craft. And then of course you see, you know, photos and it's like, man, it looks like it's the future. It's like, just seems like it would be like traveling to the future. And so I'd always wanted to go, never had. And then, you know, finally this year's like, you know what, fuck it. I've wanted to go to Japan for like 15, 20 years. And, you know, obviously with COVID, you know, everything was kind of closed and I was like, man, they're opening back up and who knows what the fuck's going to happen next year. Like, this is the time to do it. And, you know, in my mind, I really felt like going to Japan was going to be like traveling to the future. And I had just these kind of crazy expectations for it. And honestly, it was everything I thought it was going to be and so much more. Yeah. It was like, I was like, there's no way you're not going to enjoy it. Like I was surprised that I was honestly probably one of the better, if not the best trip I've ever taken, international trip I've ever taken. Also, I mean, you know, obviously in a different like place, so able to really enjoy it a little bit more. But the people there were super nice. It also was very, you know, having gone to Thailand and Vietnam, feeling like, you know, that's pretty foreign, but really the language barrier in Japan, it was a little bit surprising. I was like, wow, there's really not a ton of English here. With that, if I didn't have Google Translate and Google Maps, I don't know what I would have done. I don't know how I would have survived.
The only way to travel is with Google Maps.
Yeah, I would have
there's no other way.
It would have been like I would have had like a translator, tour guide with me, like to really do all the stuff that I ended up doing. Like if I wouldn't have had those services.
And also in Tokyo, it's like there's so many little places behind places, but like nobody knows where the fuck the place is.
No, even with Google Maps,
Even with Google Maps,
you
like,
get there and you're like,
they're like
I'm
Google
like-
Maps is like, yeah, it's around here somewhere.
yeah, you get there and you're like,
what?
oh
You
my
can't
God.
ask people unless
No,
like
nobody
you're
knows.
hot
Yeah.
on
No, and
Translate.
they like,
No one
totally.
knows.
And I'm up there like I'm an asshole with my phone out, Google Translate,
Yeah.
reading everything. Like, is this it?
Yeah.
No, is this it?
Especially
Walking
if
into
it's on
places.
the 4th floor.
It's like, yes,
You know,
yeah.
like, you're
so
like,
like,
oh,
what did
shit.
people do in 1997?
That's what I'm saying,
How,
like-
how the fuck did you get around?
You gotta
man?
you have to like hire someone to help you. I mean,
Yeah.
I would have been a great experience, but I was able to do so much. And like I'm, like obviously I don't work in restaurants anymore, but I'm still a huge fan of food and beverage.
Well, you're
And
still a
it's-
restaurant guy. Man.
Totally.
Yeah.
And but it's also like that's all I care about. Like when I travel, like I don't really give a shit about sightseeing, to be honest. Like I want to see some stuff, but mostly if I'm going on a trip, I'm going to eat. Like I'm going there. For me, sightseeing is seeing and tasting and eating all the food, hitting the markets, like just
Doing what the
there's-
locals do.
Totally,
man.
like
Yeah,
whatever the
yeah.
booze, like what's the booze you guys drink? Like what are you guys making? Okay, sake, gin. Like I want to drink Japanese gin and like pour me some crazy sake. And so I kind of went expecting a lot and was like blown away. It gave me everything I was expecting and so much more. I mean, it's super clean for how many people live there, right? There's like 32 million people that live in Tokyo. Total population of Japan's like 130 something million. 30% of them live in Tokyo, the most populous city in the world. It's still like organized chaos.
Yes.
I'm like, wow, they're still better drivers than anyone in Nashville.
But if you look at like
that one's not hard.
I know. That's,
But if you look at Tokyo and how it's put together and how many people and it's still organized chaos, and then you look at a place like, Bangkok, or you look at,
New Delhi.
in New
Yeah.
Delhi,
Yeah,
just like-
Delhi.
you're just like, holy shit, man. So like compared to those places, like Tokyo's like, you guys are fine,
Well, 100%. I mean, and obviously public transportation there is phenomenal.
I
And,
always say like the map of Tokyo on the subway, the metro. It looks like somebody took a handful of wet spaghetti, threw it up in the air, and landed it, and they're like, "Here's your train system." They're like, try to follow that around. You're like,
well, 100%, and
Yeah.
and the food, of course, like the food was incredible, and I mean, I reached out to you and to
Yeah.
Ryan, to all these people that had been there, to my old business partners and buddies in San Francisco, and I was fortunate enough to get connected with an old guest of ours that would come into Saison a bunch, and he's kind of become friends of ours, and he travels back and forth from Japan 6-8 times a year. Huge foodie. So I reached out to him, but I did it kind of late, because what I realized, just like anywhere else, it's like, oh, we'll just go online. I'm just gonna go online and make a fucking reservation. It's like, oh wait, you can't make online reservations in Japan. You have to call and you have to speak Japanese.
Yes.
And you can't have someone like be a proxy for you and call. Like it has to be like your concierge or your hotel.
Yes.
And then like they
Yeah.
won't really give you, depending on what hotel you're staying at, like they won't give you the reservation.
Yes.
And so I reached out to him and he set me up at some absolutely amazing places. I did Tokyo, and then I flew up to Hokkaido, and I was in Sapporo for a few days, and then I flew to Osaka. So I did. So the sort of first week of my trip, I was solo. I was doing like 6 meals a day, 5 bars a night.
Ooh.
I'd wake up at 7:30 in the morning. I'd go out. I'd eat. I'd see some shit that was by where I was eating, and then I would go and I would have like a 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock dinner, and then I would go and I would have like a 9 o'clock dinner, and I'd hit some bars in between, and then I'd go out drinking after that, and then usually stay out way too late, and I'd have like a 4 a.m. bowl of ramen, and just like rinse and repeat, and then met up with a girlfriend in Osaka, and did Osaka, Kyoto, and then back to Tokyo for a few more days. And she sort of put the reins in a little bit on that, on all that eating and drinking.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I definitely had some of the most amazing, dining experiences. I mean, I'm a huge sake fan, and I've always enjoyed gin, like always done, like dirty gin martini is great, but really fell in love with Japanese gin also. And so did tons of gin and tonics.
What did you think, like, your expectation was that, like, you saw, like, oh, I was totally wrong about this, like, in a good way?
Man, honestly, I think that's kind of the funny part, was that I don't know if I had any expectations where I was like, oh man, I was wrong. Good way. I think I had expectations of something and I was like, oh, you like had no idea. Like, yeah, you thought the food was going to be great or whatever, but like it far exceeded what you thought. Mm-hmm. You thought the public transportation was going to be like crazy or whatever, but it was way crazier than you even imagined. Yeah. Like you thought it was going to be foreign, you thought it was going to be challenging stuff, and like, oh yeah, it was super challenging, but it's super like fun. Mars. It was, yeah, I mean, it was like adult Disneyland, and honestly, I got recommendations from you and from Brian and other people. Like, I have enough fucking places that I could go back to Japan every year for like a month and not get through all the places in like 10 years.
So my friend who does food tours out there, Shinji.
Shinji, yeah.
You know Shinji, yeah.
Well, you connected me with your buddy. What's his name? That connected me out there. That we had dinner at this tonkatsu spot, but you guys met. John.
Yeah. Yeah, we met through Shinji. Yeah,
through Shinji, and so we were talking about him, and he was kind of telling me his story.
So he broke it down for me, and he put it in complete perspective of Tokyo, just Tokyo.
Yeah.
He goes, if you were to spend your entire life, let's say 85 years, you live a good life, 85 years, and you were only gonna go to the top 1% of restaurants, like just the 3-star Michelin restaurants in all of Tokyo, you could not get through all those restaurants in your lifetime, with the way that they close and reopen and new ones. And he's just talking about the top 1%. Yeah. So a great handful of restaurants of the top, he goes, you would not be able to make it through eating at every single restaurant.
I believe it.
And I was like, fuck, man. He goes, you can go to Tokyo your entire life, and every time you go, you're going to see something new.
It's different and new. And that was...
I don't know any other place like that. Like, I've been back and forth to Paris. Sure. Paris is like, bistro's bistro, blah, 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 blah. But like, Tokyo and Japan there's no other place like it.
There's also, it's like, even the second you get into the city, right, and it's like you're just there and you feel it, there's just something about it where it's like, I don't know, at least for me, like, I don't get that feeling if I'm in Paris or like if I'm wherever else I'm traveling. It's like there's just something about it, like the energy about it, and like you could venture down the street and just like have some of like the best food you've had in so long, and you had no idea what the place was even called.
Or try to find it again.
Yeah.
Do you think like Paris and Rome and Copenhagen to an extent are so familiar to us in the United States that a place like Bangkok or Tokyo or Saigon, it's so foreign and that's why? Or do you think that there's something more to it?
I think that, the interesting thing I think for Japan is I think it's both. It's like, right, because, Saigon or, Bangkok, compared to Japan, I mean, it's definitely, Japan, it feels a little bit more developed, like a little bit more urban, but it's still super foreign.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's over history, there's just been so much less influence by other countries.
Actually, that's a really great point.
Now I mean, that's, I think,
Vietnam,
what it
like
is.
You could get a banh mi sandwich, get a baguette anytime you want. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Like, Japan's really, like, really good at not letting anybody in. Not letting their culture, like, be
Did you experience any, like, you can't come here, Japanese only people? We experienced that a couple times, and the first time it happened, I was like, holy shit, they literally like pushed us out the door, and the guy was like screaming at us, Japanese only, and I was like, what the fuck? And I was with an Italian girl and a Mexican guy, and we're just like, it's fucking racist, man. Like, it's fucking racist.
Like, no, we
don't care.
English, they're like, get the fuck out of here, man. He's like smoking a cigarette. He's like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And it was like really late night too. It was like 3:30 in the morning. We just wanted something to eat, and we stumbled upon this like shitty bar that was doing skewers, and we were not welcome.
All those other places too, there's just, in Japan there's a lot less Australians, which I think also like aids to it being a little less.
Sapporo Niseko was like when we went skiing there, I was like, am I in Australia? Like, it was like the signs were in English, everything was fucking in English, man, so
but I think that I think that, Japan was, the experience was, I mean, it was more than I was anticipating, and I was anticipating a lot. Like it's somewhere that I can't believe it took me so long to go. I definitely am getting a Toto washlet.
A what?
Toto washlet for
What's
a
that?
clean bum.
Oh yeah,
Dick
100%. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Dude.
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
Heated
It's a
seats, pulsating,
life-changing.
oscillating.
Yeah, it opens up when you get there. It lights up in the middle of the night. So you have
Butt
to turn the fucking
dryer,
lights
you got
on.
music, privacy, aromatizer, spritz the room
Dryer.
after.
Yeah. There's nothing like taking a shit in Japan, man. I tell
Oh
you.
my gosh.
It's just great.
Preston, you should fucking definitely high on the list, man.
Well, I will say though, like, I mean, you have those restrooms, but then you also have the ones where you just kind of got to squat.
Yeah.
And
Or like in
You know,
Thailand,
it's
there's just
not-
like a
not
garden
as fun.
hose next to in Bali. There was like a garden hose, it's like on the ground. I'm like, oh,
Yeah. And that was probably the biggest surprise for me. I was like, man, the bathroom game here was highly unexpected and
Yeah.
far exceeded any of my original
That's
expectations.
That's the quintessential Japanese experience, man.
It-
yeah,
it
you
is.
go for the sushi and you stay for
sushi.
the bathroom.
You stay for the bidet.
But make sure you hit the bathroom on the way out, man.
Yeah, so it was epic, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't wait to go back. It's definitely gonna be a place that I feel like I'll try and go. I mean, I don't think I could go every single year. I would love to, but every other year, every 3 years, try and go and spend a couple weeks out there. Again, just because I mean, it's overwhelming. There were so many
It's so
places that I wanted to go
yeah.
that it was like, okay, well, you have you can't go to all of them. You've got to just pick a handful of them. And every place I went, I mean, honestly, I did not have a bad meal. I mean, even fucking 7-Eleven, like
But there's so much random, like I stumbled upon, I was just cruising around with my headphones on, like I walk any city when I land.
Yep.
And I stumbled upon this video arcade game room. And it had, the first floor, it had every 1980s video arcade, like ever fucking made, man. Like all the Pac-Mans, like Punch Out, like Dig Dug, like everything. And even more so, like games like Crazy Climber. Like, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you guys, but this is like in my childhood, growing up
Asteroid.
in the 80s. All of it, man.
Galaga.
And then you go upstairs, and it was all the Street Fighter, Tekken,
Nice.
and but it wasn't that. It was even the ones that weren't even released in the United States. So there was like 5 rows, and this row was just Street Fighter games, and there was like 20 of them, and each game was different, and characters I'd never fucking seen before. And I was like, holy shit! Like I spent a whole day there, and probably like $200 just playing video games because it was so cool. And I just happened to I was getting a coffee and the place was right next door.
Well, see, it's a very Japanese thing. Like, whatever they do like that one thing, and they do it really well. Yeah. So in this case, it was a fucking video or gameplay. And they're like, well, we're not just going to throw some random video arcades in here. We're going to be
everything.
Ground floor is going to be this. Second floor is going to be fucking Street Fighter and this.
Yeah.
And I felt that even with the food, right? It's like, oh, you go to a spot and it's like, okay, we do ramen. Mm-hmm. Okay, you go to a spot, we do tonkatsu. We've been doing tonkatsu from fucking...
That's exactly why, like, everything there, it's like you go and it's just like this mind-blowing experience. And it's like you go somewhere here in the States and it's like...
Cheesecake Factory.
If you're doing yakitori and ramen and sushi on a menu, they're not all going to be good.
Well, that's an amazing point. I'll take that a step further of places that are like, we're a Thai restaurant that we're doing sushi. We have a burger. We have French fries. We have these Korean dishes. It's like, what is this?
Like every Thai restaurant in Nashville.
It's the Asian restaurant.
It's a Cheesecake Factory.
It's a Cheesecake Factory, yeah.
And that's what I loved about that was like, cool, like, this place, oh, you want tonkatsu? Like, go to this place. They've been doing it for fucking 70 years.
Man,
they've got 25 different types of pork from all over Japan, right? And then
you could order fatty, medium fat. You could order the section of pork that you want.
Yep.
What the fuck?
So incredible.
I mean, it was unbelievable. And being such a fucking, I mean, hate saying the word foodie, more just a fat kid, was like, I was a kid in a candy store. I mean, I went to that Kakanbo ramen kind of on accident. I was walking
that place
by.
is the best ramen. I fucking love that.
I was
place.
walking by and I was like, oh, look, there's people lining up. I was like, I wonder what spot that is. And I was like, Kakanbo. I was like, I feel like. Then I checked and I was like, oh, Poli sent me that one. I was like, man, I guess I gotta go. But I was planning on going to the soba place that was like 3 or 4 blocks away, but they weren't open yet. And I was like, well, I think I can do both. I was like, well, just do the ramen. It's a set. I got in line. They opened up. I had a bowl of ramen. It was face meltingly delicious. And
Immediately
then
sent a picture to both of us.
I did.
Yeah, I was like, I know
just-
exactly what that is.
I
Like, hot
did.
as what? I'm like, good luck, dude.
I did, and then
Yeah.
I got out and I was walking back to get to the train, and it was back by that soba place, and I was like, fuck, you just gotta go. Like, when are you gonna go again? Like, you gotta go. So I walked in there and I sat down and I fucking had soba, and I walked out and I was like, oh, dude, you like don't feel good.
Yeah.
But you had to do it. I just had to do it because
Right.
I don't know when I'm gonna get to experience that again. And but that was like my whole thing. I'd be like, oh, I'd eat, and then I'd walk by and be like, what is that?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I gotta fucking try it. Like,
Well,
I
it's
guess
like
gotta
anywhere
have
there
it.
is a line, just get in line.
Absolutely.
Just jump in.
So,
Right. If you're gonna, if someone messaged you says my first time going to Japan, what would you tell them?
Oof. I guess it depends on the person,
Yeah.
right? Like, if they're kind of more of like a chill, like I know they don't like to party, you know, I would kind of separate it a little bit. But I would
Like, what do you think for the everyday person? Like, what do you think 3 things that if you're going to Japan, or let's just focus on Tokyo. If you're going to
Yeah.
Tokyo, I need to see 3 things while I'm here. What do I do?
I would definitely say walk around like kind of somewhere with like a temple, like just to kind of, there's an energy that I think it'll last, 3 months after the fact, like just kind of walking around and taking all that in, outside of food. And then it's walk around and eat. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about reservations. Like, I think as a foreigner, especially like if you're not kind of connected into like the food world,
yeah.
it's too stressful. Like,
very
don't just
overwhelming.
go
man.
walk around,
Yeah, right.
find stuff that looks
Have a
good.
free day where you have nothing planned, man.
Yeah.
Just go and eat, and like find a line or find a place where like there's people there eating, and go and eat.
Mm-hmm.
I think the stress and like the anxiety of trying to book reservations and find the place on a map and yada yada, it's like it's kind of overwhelming. Like, you're still gonna
carves
have
out
a great
most of your day
experience.
too.
Yeah, it does.
You know?
It's
Like,
too
you,
much,
you
yeah.
get in a rhythm of like you're shopping, you're doing something cool, and this 7:30 reservations
we gotta get
looming
back.
over you.
I know.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would say like end your like very spiritual start of your day with a little bit more like debauchery, like like party, but like get some like good local partying.
Yeah, golden guy.
Yeah.
Golden guy.
Golden guy is so dangerous.
I mean, I think if you're gonna pick somewhere to end your night,
So explain
Or
what
start it.
explain
Go
what
to
golden,
Golden
guy is,
Guy.
because there's nothing like it in anywhere in the world.
Did you go in
Yeah.
your
I did, yeah.
It's like it's like a shanty town of like
Just bars, tiny
bars
little.
that are about 100 square feet that fit like 4 people, and yeah,
and everything from like places blaring death metal to like
yeah,
To
just
jazz.
to jazz,
jazzy, beautiful
whiskey
sound
bars.
systems
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
We ended up in some tiny ass one where the dude didn't speak any English and he was holding a stuffed cat the entire time.
that was my place.
Yeah,
Yeah, it sounds
and
about
like
right.
would like put that. It was a very wild experience. But yeah, and there's like 2 stories. So there's like
Yeah.
ground floor, and then there's like a tiny little fucking
I
staircase.
mean, tiny is not doesn't understand.
like a
Tiny
it's
is
like
like
a ladder.
it's like a dollhouse staircase,
Yeah.
and you got to get up there to go to the bathroom or something. And we got stuck. We got stuck.
It's very
Yeah,
easy.
yeah,
to
yeah.
get
We got
stuck.
I got stuck there too,
I got
buddy, yeah.
stuck there with my friends, Caitlin and Anders from Copenhagen. We were just out partying, this and that, and then we tried to catch the train, and the train stopped running.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, can't catch a cab or no cab. We were stuck. We're just like, well, let's go get another drink. And we stayed like an extra 4 hours, just like drinking and talking, and the time just goes. Especially those people that like own these little like I wouldn't call them bars, like almost shanty. I don't even know what the cubicles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're so much fun. They're so welcoming. It's
Yep.
like, get in here, man. Like, and you're stuffed there with like 6 other people, just like crammed, and everybody's having a great time, and everyone wants to talk to you, and they're so hospitable.
Yeah.
If you're in a spot too where if it's actually closed off and there's no light from the outside, it is very easy to just you open the door and all of a sudden it's
dangerous.
daylight.
Yeah.
Dangerous, man. Yeah.
Like that experience has been
There is
had that a few times.
There is
Yeah.
nothing like walking out of a bar or a club at like 7, 8 in the morning when people are going to work and you're just fucking hammered. It's just like this.
just
It's almost like
look
this
terrible.
film. There's this film on my skin of like I need to shower and you're like,
Yes.
fuck. There's people going to work and
I know that feeling very well.
in like trench coats or like with a briefcase. You're just like, oh,
or you get outside and there's people exercising.
Exercising.
People running, like jogging by you, and you're like just coming out of the
taking their
club.
kids to school. You're
Bloodshot
just
red
like,
eyes, and you're like, oh my god, you asshole, go
fuck,
away.
Yeah.
where's the travel? Anywhere travel next? What do we need to talk about? Where are we going next, man? Well, you're just in Paris, man. Were you just in Paris?
Yeah.
You were-
Yeah.
Yeah, in London, yeah.
London, Paris, lots of eating in LA, San Diego, most recently Miami.
Oh yeah, what's good in Miami these days, man?
Well, I would say out of everywhere I traveled probably in the past 6 months or so, ate at this place, Itame,
Yeah.
blew my mind. That's probably the
kidding,
best meal I've had
Right on.
in months. It's like Peruvian, Japanese.
Man, those cultures go so well together.
They do.
Jesus, man.
Tons of crossover.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was just an experience. I mean, it's so good. And it's been probably 4 years since I've been to Miami. And there's just so much new stuff and like so much going on that, I mean, between going there and it just happened to line up, but like that night I went from there straight to Dante's
Nice.
and like,
Oh, Dante's great.
Dante's
It's
Hi-Fi,
like-
Yeah, that's a fun bar.
I'm like, I could just fucking live here.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. That area is great. What areas? I'm not that familiar
It's
with.
in like the Wynwood.
Wynwood,
Arts,
yeah, Wynwood, yeah.
I love Miami. Miami, I never went, in San Francisco, it's like, Miami, you go to Mexico.
we might as well just go to fucking Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
So I've really only started going to Miami since I moved out here. I've probably been 4 times now since moving out here, and fucking love Miami.
I'm adding it to my like at least
Weekend
once a
getaways.
year.
Yeah.
Weekend getaways,
Yeah.
would
Miami,
be great,
Miami
but-
Kris is like a real thing. Like it's like I get off the plane and like like the linen shorts come on. It's like
Miami Kris.
yeah, it's a whole vibe for me. I love it. I mean,
Got all your cash in a money clip.
yeah, exactly. But and the sushi game in Miami is
It's top
solid.
notch,
And
man.
since
It's
Nashville
super good.
doesn't really have good sushi,
Yet.
it's
Yet.
yet.
Well, it was interesting too, like going this time around because it was like my first kind of trip that I've been on with a new girlfriend, and if when you're dating someone who hasn't dated like a chef or restaurant person that travels, she's just like, oh my god, like why are you making so many reservations? Or like, how many meals could we eat? Or
Dude.
how much can you possibly drink?
I dragged
like
poor Angie. Never been to Europe before.
Oh, God.
Used to eat just for substance.
Yeah.
Didn't even know there was a food world. And I dragged her around Copenhagen and Paris for like 6 days. And like the fifth day in Paris of like dragging her all around everywhere. She was like, you go to dinner. I need to stay in the hotel tonight.
Yeah.
And she ordered a bottle of wine and she got a little cheese plate and she stayed in bed the whole fucking day. I was like, oh man, I really fucked this one up. Man. This poor girl, man.
I know,
Because
it's
I'm
a-
just like,
it's sickness.
go. I mean, I've been
Same.
doing this for 25 years. Just like,
she's like, you don't want to
like,
go back to the
ah.
hotel room just to like take a nap? I'm like, well, no, we got like 3 hours in between our
I
reservation.
was like,
Let's
man,
go
are
have
you
some
kidding me?
drinks."
We're gonna get some ice cream now. And she's just
Right.
like, you need to go to dinner by
There's
yourself.
2 bars that I saw. I wanted to just go check them out real quick.
Yeah.
Have a cocktail at each one. And
Fucking poor
I
girl,
know.
man. Yeah.
Oh, I had
know,
a
feeling
scooter
well.
the whole time too, like a little Vespa.
Yeah.
You're staying in South Beach. I just like,
Oh, that's a great idea.
it's the best. I'll never renting a car there again. Only scooters.
Well, guys, thanks for sitting down and chatting. I think this is going to be the first of many travel podcasts of what's going on. Thanks
Yeah,
for
man.
telling your stories. Ryan, if people want to find you at your place, where are we going to find you at? What do you got, some Instagram handles? Or what's...
Yeah, so we have, shit, I should look that up. I mean, mine's just The Wise Visitor, at The Wise Visitor, which is my consulting company. But the restaurant, I don't know why I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. man.
Well,
I'm
it's
not
a
gonna
new,
lie, it's kind of weird.
it is. It's the Instagram's present tense Nashville.
Yeah.
And then we have Hippo Bodega.
And it's open now, or?
So present tense is they're both going to open around the same time. We're pretty much ready to go. Waiting on we're on the like last phase of our liquor license to transfer over, and waiting on a big giant slab of concrete to go on like my kitchen island.
Dope.
I'm really excited to plate some dishes off of that. So yeah, we're thinking about first week of May to start
Nice.
launching friends and family and soft opening.
And what kind of food's it going to be?
Call it like rustic, kind of Japanese leaning, just fun cuisine.
And Japanese only, right?
Japanese only,
Japanese
we're
people
not.
only, right?
No, Japanese people only for sure. For sure.
No English.
Well, in that it's a perfect segue into the Sakura Festival.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Kris, if somebody wants to buy a house in Nashville, where are we going to find you at?
Yeah. Kaza, sort of the little real estate company that I've been trying to build out here. Find me on Instagram, Kris with a K, Kris, and then my last name, Esqueda, Esqueda. Yeah, I think you can find me on the internet, social media.
Right on. I think what was interesting the first time we met, you told me you take a hospitality approach to the way you sell houses, which I think is an amazing approach, because the couple realtors that I've dealt with in my life is, I bought a condo, I sold a condo, I bought this house. It's like, so many marks were missed, but you take, here's your menu, this is what to expect, this is what you're going to do, and you kind of
been some really nice, good crossover between the two. I mean, that's one.
But it's a very stressful experience of buying a home, and when you link up with a realtor, and all of a sudden you're getting emails from these people. I need this, and there's no introduction of like, hey man, how's it going? This is what I do. This is who I am. I work with Kris. I'm gonna need this. I would just get these random emails from people demanding stuff.
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, who the fuck are you, man? Like, fuck off. And I think your approach to it is like, from a hospitality sense, I think is probably why you're so successful.
Yeah, it's the aspect of it that I really enjoy. Like, I miss being able to interact with people on the floor like I used to, and so this is my opportunity to do that. So I try and to provide that 3-star Michelin service throughout the home buying guide.
If you want to buy a 3-star Michelin home, it's the guy to call, man.
I'm only buying houses.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
right.
But yeah, you Kris at kaza.realestate is the email. But looking forward to being back on more of these. Like hopefully going to Singapore. So hopefully I have some Singapore stories we can all share next.
Great.
Next
That'd
time.
be
Perfect.
We
When you go to
could
Singapore?
spend a whole
Maybe
2
in
hours
May.
on that one.
End of May.
End of
Yeah.
May.
Great. Let's
Beginning
pick it
of
up maybe in we'll do another one in July and see where we've been.
It's great.
Sounds good.
Love it.
Thanks, guys.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
So
Thank
fun
you.
doing it.